what should we not do? So Sukadeva Goswami will begin by describing what we should not do. We're going to hear about what we should not do. A little overview. I don't think you need this overview actually. Anyway, if you like, first 6 verses, Sukadeva Goswami's he appreciates Maharaja's spiritual question, and then he goes on talking about Grahamedis, and because that's what we should not do, right? He wanted to know what we should not do. So what we should not do is be Grahamedis. We should cultivate spiritual life. Grahamedi is the path of material sense gratification. And then chapter goes on, Sukadeva Goswami gives himself as an example, and he recommends constant chanting of the holy names. And he said even a moment can bring one perfection of life. The chanting of the holy names is so powerful. So Sukadeva Goswami in the very beginning here recommends the chanting of the holy name. But we will see he doesn't, well, although he begins like that, he goes off into other things. And he recommends that this third section, 14 to 21, he's recommending detachment from material life. Leaving home, going to a holy place, and then chanting Om. This way, meditation on the form of Vishnu. But then he goes on, in 10:22 up to 39, the rest of the chapter, he describes about meditation on the universal form. That something, meditation on the universal form is something for the materialist to enter into easily. To ask people to meditate on the form of Vishnu is not something everyone can take to. One has to have some kind of spiritual inclination. But meditation on the universal form, that's something people, materialistic people, can do. So coming back to the first chapter, the beginning of the chapter, after hearing the question, which was given in the first canto, at the end of the first canto, Sukadeva Goswami is very pleased, he's very happy. And Srila Prabhupada elaborates on this. We have a quote from Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam lecture, given in Melbourne, 1974, when Prabhupada was lecturing on the same verse. Prabhupada said, question was about Krishna, and the reply is Srimad Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses. And each and every verse is so important that if a serious student studies each and every verse, each verse will take at least 1 month to understand. And there are 18,000 verses. So for serious study of Srimad Bhagavatam, it will take 18,000 months. So 18,000 months, meaning how many years? 1,500 years. So Prabhupada is saying like this because the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, his own spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, had spoken on the very first verse for 1 month. He'd actually done that when he was lecturing. I think it took place in what is now Bangladesh, when he was in Dhaka. But he explained the verse elaborately for 1 month. So Prabhupada is saying again, he's continuing, he said, every verse will take at least 1 month to understand. Srila Prabhupada often said, each word is full of so much meaning. So if you want to understand it properly, it will take 1 month. So in this way, Prabhupada said 1,500 years. And then Prabhupada continues, this is the same verse, lecturing on the same verse, but this time in Vrindavan, and Prabhupada is quoted as saying, because this Bhagavatam is so nice, transcendental subject matter, discussed about Krishna, it is lokahitam. It should be spread all over the world. Loka does not mean your country or your society, Brahmana society, Goswami society. Notice Prabhupada is speaking about this because he's lecturing in Vrindavan. So in Vrindavan, of course, you have the Goswami families, and you have the, Prabhupada calls it here, the Brahmana society and the Goswami society. So Prabhupada is addressing them that Srimad Bhagavatam is not meant for just you people. He said, no, lokahitam, for the benefit of the whole world. That is lokahitam. Not only of this world, but other worlds also, of the whole universe. Lokahitam, Nripa, my dear king, you are Prashna. So this message of Srimad Bhagavatam should be spread all over the world. So in this way, Prabhupada is impressing on us how the Srimad Bhagavatam is for everyone. And we have tried to do that with our own Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. They've been translating Srimad Bhagavatam into many different languages of the world. And we have the full set now in Russian and in Chinese and in French and in Spanish. So many different languages. Try to give everywhere, the whole planet. Let them all have this knowledge. All right, here's a quote from Prabhupada's purport of the first verse. Prabhupada is talking about the effects of the Bhagavatam. He said, the topics of Lord Krishna are so auspicious that they purify the speaker, the hearer, and the inquirer. They're compared to Ganges water, which flows from the toe of Lord Krishna. Wherever the Ganges waters go, they purify the land and the person who bathes in them. Similarly, the topics of Krishna are so pure that wherever they are spoken, the place, the hearer, the inquirer, the speaker, and all concerned become purified. So this a similar quote to this is also found in the introduction to the Krishna book. I remember reading the Krishna book before I joined the Krishna consciousness movement, and I read in the introduction how the Krishna book, Prabhupada said, is beneficial for three people. It's beneficial for the speaker, for the hearer who inquired, and for the audience. So everyone becomes benefited by the sound vibration of the topics of Krishna. So that's the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Sukadeva Goswami goes on to speak about the consciousness of illusion. when people are in illusion, they have a different kind of consciousness. People who are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam one way, but not everybody is a devotee. We've got people, we know, in family life, there are two kinds of grihastas. Well, two kinds of families. One family is grihasta, which is a spiritual ashram, and the other family is more Grahamedi. So we're asking you, what would be some of the typical symptoms of the Grahamedi? You know, we would like to hear somebody, one of you, like to contribute. Tell me, how would you imagine? What do you think it would be the symptom or the behavior of people who are Grahamedis? What's their thinking and their mentality, their behavior? How does it contrast to that of a devotee? Oh, okay, some people have their hands up. Yes. Atmani Vedana, is it? Oh, no, I have to put on my glasses. Amarendra Hari Das.
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, you always think about his family or how to economic growth, and they don't think about the Lord or what happened after this life. They don't think about that. It's a symptom for
Right.
the Medi life.
They're very much concerned with their economic situation. Right. They're thinking about money. And for money, they'll make great endeavors and great sacrifices, working long hours, sometimes in the most terrible conditions, just to get more wealth, to have more wealth for their economic comfort. All right? Yes, money is important. Of course, people do need money, but it's not that we're meant to sacrifice our whole life just to get that. And then Ganga Shakti Mataji also would like to say something.
Krishna Maharaj. So the life of a Grahamedi is centered around sense gratification. Everything that they have and everything that they want to do is centered around how they can satisfy their senses more and more.
Yes, right. Their purpose in life is simply for the comfort. They like to live, maybe what they want, more luxurious lifestyle. They are thinking always to get the bigger house and the bigger car. They're never satisfied with what they have. They always want to get something better. Okay, thank you. And then Amala Charan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So for Grihamedis, like their whole day is passed in sense gratification and in night sex indulgence, and they just think about maintaining their family members.
Right, yes, their day is spent simply working and sleeping, and they have no thought about any other thing outside their own eating and sleeping, their own little world. And the center of their existence is just their own family. And they don't think about others, the benefit of others, and they don't think about the future of life, what's going to happen at the end of life. Simply they think they will live forever. They'll try to live forever, maintain a long life. So in this way, Sukadeva Goswami began his answer to Maharaj Parikshit by explaining what we should not do, right? He was talking about the Grahamedis. This is what we should not do. We don't want to fall into that kind of trap. So he began his reply to Sukadeva to Maharaj Parikshit in that way. And he mentioned some different points here. We've listed them. We shouldn't waste our precious human life hearing mundane topics, Gramya Katha. It's always very much discouraged. You know, people are very eager to hear, they go to movies and watch television and listen to radio and pop music and different things. They're hearing a lot of mundane things. They don't hear the spiritual sound vibration. And their whole day is spent looking for money and then sleeping or having sex at night. And when it comes to taking shelter, they take shelter of what is termed in Srimad Bhagavatam as fallible soldiers. In other words, they're thinking their home is their fort and their army is the family members and relatives. Maybe they even have servants. There may even be dogs or whatever there to protect them. And they're thinking in this way, they will protect themselves from any intruders, and even time will not come and take them away. So this materialistic people try to make themselves secure in the material world. So here you can see the typical situation from Prabhupada's lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada was lecturing in Boston on this section of the Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada said, they are blind. They are thinking that these things will give him protection. Pramata. Pramata means crazy, crazy. By craziness, he is thinking. He's thinking that these things will give me protection. So this is the illusion of material life. We want to beware of that. The fallible soldiers, they cannot really save us at the time of death. Nothing can save us. Srila Prabhupada describes, again, on the same section. Oh, this is actually, it's related to second canto, but here Prabhupada was speaking from the first canto. He was describing this materialistic mentality. They'll devote the whole day for reading the newspaper or some fiction or some novels for this and that, but they have no time to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. And then Prabhupada quotes from the second canto, first chapter, Apashyatam Atmatattvam. And then it goes on, Griheshu Grahamedinam, right? So Apashyatam Atmatattvam, they're blind to the science of self-realization. They have no interest in self-realization. People have lost all interest. This is the position. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is essential at the present moment. That was 1974, and the situation hasn't changed. This Krishna conscious movement is essential. So here you can see something of the topics which Sukadeva Goswami continues to speak about. The first 5 verses he was speaking what they shouldn't do, but then 5 and 6 goes on to speak about what they should do. And of course he wants to bring them to devotional service. And he will speak about chanting and hearing about the activities of the Supreme Lord, chanting the glories of the Lord and hearing about the Lord's pastimes. And Sukadeva Goswami gives an example. He talks about liberated souls, and he gives himself as an example how he was attracted to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So then he goes on to speak about the qualification and benefit for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, Sukadeva Goswami is presenting spiritual knowledge. Here's a quote from verse number 10 of this chapter, just explaining about the importance of receiving spiritual knowledge. The spiritual master must be satisfied with the disciple. Only then in knowledge, only then is knowledge automatically manifest before the student or spiritual science. The process should not be, however, be misunderstood to be something like magical feats, whereby the spiritual master acts like a magician and injects spiritual knowledge into his disciple, as if surcharging him with an electrical current. The bona fide spiritual master reasonably explains everything to the disciple on the authorities of Vedic wisdom. The disciple can receive such teachings not exactly intellectually, but by submissive inquiries and a service attitude. The idea is that both the spiritual master and the disciple must be bona fide. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada outlines the relationship between the disciple and the spiritual teacher. Sometimes people have the idea that, oh, you can give spiritual knowledge, the guru just has to touch you on the head, and just by the touch of his hand, he will put spirit divya gyan into you. Well, that may be in some cases, but that's not necessarily the standard method of giving spiritual knowledge. Rather, the spiritual master will explain based on the inquiry and the sincere desire of the disciple to hear, then the spiritual master will explain everything. So we ask you, what do you consider to be the important qualification of an ideal hearer? Who would you consider to be the ideal hearer? Any contributions from our students?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The qualification should be submissive.
Submissive, yes.
And a good listener.
A good listener.
He should be
Yes.
inquisitive.
Sorry?
He should be inquisitive.
He should be inquisitive. Yes, these are good qualifications. Inquisitive, submissive, eager to hear. Yes,
Maharaj, he should be an attentive listener.
Yes, attentive. Yes, right. He should hear with rapt attention.
He should have faith in the spiritual master.
Yes, that's also a very important point. He must have faith that the spiritual master is presenting the subject matter in the proper manner. So faith is certainly an important quality for an ideal hearer. If his faith is strong, then he will hear with great care. But you know, we often see spiritual master may speak, but somehow it doesn't go into the heart. It just goes in one ear and out the other. Somehow the knowledge is just not maintained. Nothing is maintained. So qualification of a hearer is that they're really eager to absorb whatever the spiritual teacher is explaining to them, and they will hear carefully, and they will ask also questions which will help to bring out more the understanding of the subject matter. In Bhagavad Gita 4:34, Srila Prabhupada talks about how questions shouldn't be foolish and they shouldn't be challenging. They must be put in such a manner to help to bring out more the understanding of the subject matter, which is under discussion. So an ideal hearer will ask like that, as well as his having faith. He will hear carefully. Okay, so then Sukadeva Goswami then goes on to talk about the chanting of the holy name, chanting of the glories of the Lord. Harer Nam Anukirtanam. There should be the chanting of the holy names. And the different acharyas, they've given us some instructions on this about the chanting of the holy name, chanting of the glories of the Lord. Sridhar Swami is mentioned. Sridhar Swami, this is the original commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam. Sridhar Swami came long before the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he wrote commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he says that no other method of self-realization can be more beneficial than this constant chanting of the holy name. And then Jiva Goswami, who is the younger nephew of Rupa and Sanatan, and went on to lead the Goswamis in Vrindavan. Jiva Goswami adds a condition that, yes, chanting is very good, but one must avoid namaparad in order to achieve the ultimate result of chanting. We must avoid the 10 offenses. You know, if you stay in the temple, maybe in the morning program, well, I don't know about all the temples, but a lot of temples, in the morning after Mangal Arti and after the Tulsi Puja, and then the devotees will do something like, maybe they chant Shikshastikam prayers, and then they will recite the 10 offenses, because they're after the Tulsi Puja and so on, then they're preparing themselves for the japa. The period of chanting japa comes in the morning program. And before they start the japa, they will first of all recite the 10 offenses in chanting the holy name. So Jiva Goswami mentions the importance of avoiding offenses in chanting the holy name. That it's good to do constant chanting, but we must chant without offense, and then you get the real benefit of the chanting. If we don't avoid the offenses, then we'll never get the love of Godhead, which is what we really want to get from the chanting. We want to develop love of God, but you won't get that Krishna Prem if we're still chanting with offense. And then Prabhupada also quotes Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he says that among the angas of bhakti, hearing, chanting, and remembering are the 3 chief ones. This has been stated in verse 5. Among those 3, chanting is the chief. So chanting is the chief process of bhakti yoga, because where the chanting is done properly, then there will be also hearing, and there will be also remembering. These other processes will naturally come where there is pure chanting of the holy name. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur highlights the chanting as the chief of the 9 processes of bhakti. And they also mention about chanting loudly. The loud chanting of the holy name is especially powerful. Now, Srila Prabhupada said, the louder you chant, the more powerful it becomes. So sometimes, of course, you feel disturbed by loud chanting, but actually it's very powerful. Then it's also pointed out the chanting should be anukirtan, should be constant, following in the footsteps of the previous authorities and according to the level of one's realizations. So different people will chant on different levels of realization. Someone's a beginner, they're just beginning to chant the holy name. Someone else is chanting regularly. And somebody else is chanting on the topmost platform, and they're chanting, and just by seeing them chant, other people are inspired to chant. So here we've put on the slide text number 11, where this constant chanting is recommended. Right? You can chant the verse together. Let's all chant together. Etan nirvidyamananam ichatam akuto bayam yoginam nripanirnitam harir nam anukirtanam. O King, Sukadeva Goswami is speaking, constant chanting of the holy name after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. So in this way, Sukadeva Goswami is describing how the chanting of the holy name is beneficial for everyone in whatever condition they're in. All material desires, no material desires, or desiring liberation, whatever position they're in. They'll all be benefited by chanting. So how many people do we have here in the class today? How many is in the class?
Maharaj, 21.
21 only, okay. So then, can we make partners? You can put people into pairs and one group will be 3.
Okay, Maharaj. Three devotees in one group, in one room.
Okay, you can have 3 in one group if you like. Make groups of 3. Yeah, it doesn't have to be 2s. Make it 3. And what we want to hear from you, we want to hear how you're going to counteract offenses to the holy name. What do you think will be something constructive, some strategy to counteract our offenses to the holy name? So just give you 5 minutes, put people into groups, and we'll hear from them.
Okay, Maharaj. Okay, Maharaj. Yes, 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 Maharaj.
Just 2 minutes more.
Okay, Maharaj.
Thank you, Mataji.
Maharaj, everybody is back.
Everyone back?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, everyone's back?
Yes, Maharaj.
All right, let me hear from group one. Is there a spokesman in group one? Yes? Oh, okay, let me ask somebody, we'll ask someone to tell me what you discussed. What did you come up with? What about Kamalakshi Mataji? You can tell us? What did you
Hare
discuss?
Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. Actually, we discuss if we chanting the holy name within the association of devotee, then we can be able to counteract the offenses. And attentive chanting, we should attentively chant, and we should also attentively hear. Then we can counteract the offenses to the holy name. Hare Krishna.
I don't know. How are you going to do that? How are you going to effectively chant? You know, just by being it, you might find yourself in the association of devotees just sit and talk to each other all the time. You know, I don't think you came up with very much. Let me hear maybe, but what about Gita Krishna Das, is it? Gita Krishna Das is there?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes? Were you in a group?
Yes, Maharaj.
And so what did you discuss?
One of the points was that, we should not indulge in prajalpa. Because if we are indulging in prajalpa, then we tend to, discuss something against other devotees, which will be.
So how are you going to avoid that?
Avoid bad association.
Bad association. Well, you're chanting the holy name. You should think everyone is chanting the holy name. They're devotees. You're not.
But there are some devotees may not be serious enough. We should avoid their association. Try to associate with people who are really serious and they want to advance in.
You're not going to give any mercy to the neophyte devotees, huh? You're just going to reject them, put them aside, cast them out of your association. It must be difficult sometimes for people in Krishna consciousness. Okay, let me hear somebody else. Who would like? What about Jagat? What's that? Jagat? What is it? Something?
Jagat Mata Shachi Mataji.
Jagat Mala Sachi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, 2 hours of our chanting depends upon what else we do on our 22 hours. So if we plan our day accordingly and we don't do the things that devotees post and engage ourselves other 22 hours, then our japa could be managed. We can do attentive japa then.
Only 22 hours. What happened to the other 2 hours?
2 hours we chant now, Maharaj.
Oh, 2 hours for japa. Okay. Oh, okay. 2 hours for japa and 22 hours to. No, we're concerned with these 2 hours, you see. The offenses to the holy name can come in the chanting on our 2 hours of japa. We're thinking about how we can improve the quality of our japa.
Maharaj, by chanting loudly when we chant.
Yes, I think that's a good thing. Chant loudly. If so long as you're not able, so long as you don't disturb everybody around you, you know, it's certainly nice to chant loudly, and it's recommended. People like Koloveka Sridhar and Haridas Thakur, they all chanted the holy name loudly. And you can hear Prabhupada's japa tape, you can hear Prabhupada very clearly chanting the holy name. Often we see devotees, they're holding the beads, but we don't hear much sound vibration coming from them. So there should be clear chanting of the holy name. The sound should come out. The lips should move. There should be sound. That's important. Okay. What about Antaranya Balaram Prabhu? What do you think about chanting the holy name? How can we avoid offenses?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, if especially before the chanting we pray sincerely to the devotees and to the Lord, then it will help us avoid the offenses during the chanting.
Yeah, that's good, Prabhu. Yes, that's recommended, certainly. Prayer before we begin to chant, a sincere prayer. And we're even guided, we're given some verses to recite, which would help us to pray to the Lord that we can chant better. Yes, thank you. Yes, what about Jai Kumari Mataji, is it?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, maybe if we developed a mood of humbleness, I mean, Trinadapi Sunichena Taroreva Sahishnana Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. We should be humble and more tolerant than a tree, and we should offer respect to other and not expect for us. If we develop such mood and then we chant, maybe it can help us avoid 10 offenses.
Can you help me to develop that mood?
It happens by chanting. It happens by chanting. I mean, these go, if we chant attentively, then we can develop this mood. And if we try to develop this mood, we can also chant attentively. I mean,
yeah, kind of, it works both ways, right? Okay.
And also if we listen properly the words of the mantra and focus on hearing what we are chanting, if we focus on the words, then it also helps us in chanting attentively and avoid offenses.
Yes, so you have to chant. There has to be sound, there has to be loud chanting. You have to be able to hear the mantra. Otherwise, how can you focus on the word, on each word? All right, so here's a quote here. This is from Harinam Chintamani, where Haridas Thakur is speaking to Lord Chaitanya, and he describes here, inattention is counted as one of the aparads. Even if one successfully overcomes all the other offenses in chanting, and one is chanting continuously, love of God may not come. One should know that the reason for this is that one is committing the offense known as pramada, or inattention. This offense will block progress to prema. Mahaprabhu said, the goal of life is to develop love of God. Prem punarto mahan. But if our chanting is not done with proper attention, then we will not get that prem. We won't be able to come. We may get rid of the the reactions to our sins, but we won't get the real goal, which is to develop love of God. So this pramada, this inattention, this is the seed of all other offenses. That Bhaktivinoda Thakur says like that the inattention, from inattention, all the other offenses come. So we must be very careful to chant with full attention. If you go to Govardhan, you can see our Bhaktivedanta ashram, which is there on the Govardhan Parikram Marg. There's the Bhaktivedanta ashram, and some great devotees used to go there. They used to chant there in that house. There was one Maharaja who owned that house. So they used to chant there. They used to go on the roof of the house, and they cover their head with a blanket, and in this way they would chant the holy name. They didn't want anything to distract them. They didn't want to see anyone or anything. So they put some cloth or some blanket over their head, and in this way they would chant the holy name. So you can also try like that. Of course, chances are you put a blanket over your head, you may go off to sleep. You may close your eyes and drift off. So in some ways it's good to keep awake and be alert. Here's a quote which is taken from Prabhupada's purport in the prayers by Queen Kunti, where he talks about the uncontrolled mind. Prabhupada said, there is a quality to such utterances also. It depends on the quality of feeling. So when we actually have some feeling for this chanting, then it will help to improve our japa. We have to develop that mood, that feeling. What should that feeling be? Srila Prabhupada sometimes described it as like a little child separated from the mother or father. So the child will cry, will feel very heartbroken, feeling the separation from its own parents. So our chanting should be done in that kind of mood. That is the quality of feeling which we should have. So we're warned against just simply mechanically chanting. And sometimes even apathy is there. Apathy, don't get it, don't take it too seriously, or give me more time, just be patient. So that kind of mood will make it very difficult for us to progress in the quality of our chanting. So we have to be careful to try to cultivate that feeling for service to Krishna. One devotee was lecturing on the chanting of the holy name. In Prabhupada's time, Prabhupada asked this one sannyasi to give a talk on the 10 offenses. And so he was explaining, in the course of his lecture, he said, Krishna is in his name. But Prabhupada stopped him. He didn't like that. He said, no. He said, Krishna is his name. There's no difference between Krishna and his name. It's not that Krishna is in his name, but Krishna is his name. So how much respect we have to have. So here are some quotes here about the importance of effort, making that effort to chant with quality, with real feeling. We describe here, effort is the gateway from Nam Aparad to Nam Abbas. Nam Abbas is that you can get liberated from chanting at Nam Abbas. So Nam Abbas is not Shuddhanam, but it's good. If you get, certainly it's a lot better than Nam Aparad. There are 3 levels of chanting. You have Nam Aparad, Nam Abas, and Shuddhanam. So if you can come from Nam Aparad to Nam Abas, that's very good. But it takes effort. It takes our own desire on our own part. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada is quoted here. Unless we extend our best effort earnestly and qualify ourselves for the Lord's mercy, it will be next to impossible that we can be rescued from our fallen condition. And another quote from Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, Chapter 7, text number 6, purport. Prabhupada writes, revival of the dormant affection or love of God does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. So we want to try to invoke that mercy of the Lord. And how to attract that mercy of the Lord? Prabhupada describes it. When the Lord is satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee. So again, effort is mentioned. We have to make that effort. We have to want something. We have to want something really badly. Did you ever want something really badly? Maybe, you thought of you wanted to get a job, you wanted that particular job, or you wanted to pass an exam. I remember there was this one young lady, she was preparing, she wanted to get a scholarship to go to America, and she had to take an English exam, a vocabulary exam. So in order to prepare herself for the exam, she made so much effort, she memorized every word in the dictionary. Her desire, her effort was so much. She really wanted something badly. So she made such great efforts to go through the whole dictionary and memorize words. We should want Krishna in the same way. We should want to develop love of God in a similar manner. It takes effort on our part. We want to achieve it. There has to be that effort. All right? This is some notes which we're giving you to point out the relationship between our physical body and our mind. So different activities you can do with your body which will it can help us to concentrate the mind. For example, if we do our chanting just while moving our eyes around the room. So you're moving eyes around the room. You're looking at everything in the room. Our attention will not be so much on the chanting. Our mind is going to be more on what's going on around the room. You have to be very careful what we do with our body. So then say, chant while either closing your eyes or staring at one object. That will certainly be better. The danger is you close your eyes, you may go to sleep. Now, Prabhupada would get very upset sometimes with people if they would sleep in his class. And one time especially, it was quite funny. Prabhupada was lecturing, and there was a devotee, he was sitting in front of Prabhupada, but the devotee closed his eyes. Now Prabhupada stopped and said, "You're sleeping." And the devotee said to Prabhupada, "I'm not sleeping. Prabhupada, I'm not." And Prabhupada said, "If your eyes are closed and you're not moving, then you must be asleep." So Prabhupada didn't accept any arguments. Anyway, chanting, close your eyes. If you keep chanting, that's good. You close your eyes, you can concentrate more. And sometimes you can just stare at one point. You can also try that. Or chant while sitting calmly, not shaking your body. His Holiness Lokanath Swami describes when he was a new devotee, he'd just come to the Krishna consciousness movement. And so he was sitting chanting, and he was moving his knees up and down, shaking his knees. And Prabhupada came, and Prabhupada was chanting. Prabhupada saw him, and Prabhupada immediately shouted at him, said, "You, stop it, stop that." So Prabhupada didn't like him sitting, shaking his knees. I think the last point is very interesting. We'll read the last one. Stand up, raise your arms in the air, and smile. For fun, try to be depressed while maintaining this posture. Can you imagine? You stand up, put your hands up in the air. Everyone put your hands up in the air and smile. Just think, do you feel depressed? Impossible, right? It's impossible to feel depressed. So some postures are very helpful. You know, you feel depressed, just go to Kirtan. Join the Kirtan, chant Hare Krishna, put your hands up in the air, and depression will go far away. All right, so then we talk about the lifestyle. A favorable lifestyle has a lot to do with how successfully we're able to chant the holy name. What good habits could we incorporate in our lives in order to improve our japa? Favorable lifestyle. You know, maybe some people's lifestyle, maybe working in a casino all night. You know, we had one young man, I remember in London, there was one young man, he was working in a casino all night. He'd come to Mongol Aarti after the casino closed. He'd come to the Mongol Aarti. It's not a very favorable lifestyle to be in a casino the whole night working and then chant the holy name. Well, he's chanting the holy name, that's good. But the lifestyle is not very good. If the lifestyle is, you know, if you're working in a butcher's shop, chanting the holy name, it's not a very good lifestyle. So what good habits could we incorporate which would help to improve our japa? Would you like to suggest some things which are good to help to improve our japa? We'll ask Rukmini. Hari Nandini, is it?
Maharaj,
Yes.
it's I will just say it's easy to say, but it also takes me much time to follow it. If we don't take more spicy food, we take food before sunset, we sleep early, we get up early, and as one of the point which her grace Jagat Mata Shachi Mata told, that 22 hours, whatever the consciousness we are in, that really reflects when we chant for remaining 2 hours. And this Maharaj, this lifestyle.
Yes. So what we do in the day, It's very good. You mentioned about sleeping early, getting up early. This very good. Try to get up earlier in the morning. Make use of the important time in the day, the Brahma Muhurta, before the sun rises. If you can get up at that time, then it's better to chant then. And try to avoid eating at night as well. I know when I became a devotee, we were given the instruction by Srila Prabhupada, said, don't eat grains after 4 o'clock in the evening. No grains after 4 o'clock in the evening. And many temples, we followed that. We would cook puris and so on and halava and stuff. We would not distribute it. We'd keep it for the next day. Although we were cooking grains and offering it to the deities in the evening, but it would not be distributed. It would remain until the next morning when it would be distributed, because it was considered so harmful to eat grains in the night. You want to eat something at night, you can take some milk, have some fruit, something light. The Buddhists, just to give you an example, the Buddhists, they have the rule, they will only eat 2 meals a day. They will eat breakfast and lunch. They don't eat in the afternoon or evening. So what is asked actually by Srila Prabhupada, it's conducive for spiritual life. Unfortunately, difficult, as Rukmini Maharaji said, difficult to apply. People often go out to work all day, they come home at night. They didn't have a meal all day, or they ate some quick food outside. They come home at night and they may eat the full meal in the night. And then they go to sleep, and of course the food cannot digest properly in the night. They wake up the next morning and they feel tired. They didn't get a good night's rest. So the good habits, a good lifestyle, particularly in relation to eating, try not to eat in the night. Makes it a lot easier to get up in the morning, and to chant in the morning also when you haven't eaten a big meal at night. So that's something in our life which we could do to improve our japa. As you say, also 22 hours, it's going to, what we do in the 22 hours. So what should we do? What are the good habits which will help us to improve our japa? Things like go to temple, or do your puja, worship the deities, have some kirtan. These are the things which we should be doing. These are good habits. And do some reading. Many devotees, they make reading groups, get people together to read Prabhupada's books. It's also very helpful to do reading. Have to read, have to hear every day. That's a good habit. So very good that you're studying Bhakti Vaibhava. I know it's a lot of work. It's not an easy thing to complete the study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I appreciate your efforts that you've completed Bhakti Shastri, and now you're going on to study Bhakti Vaibhava, and you've gone through the first canto, and now you're entering into second canto. This is very good. I appreciate your efforts. So try also to not just only study, but to apply the principles which are being recommended in the course of our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So good habits in our japa will certainly help us. Putting on the dress of devotee also is very good for us. mark the body with tilak regularly. Some people don't like to do that, or they like to hide the fact that they're devotees. All right, any other point anybody like to add?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I want to add that on a Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
yes, you can
I mean,
add, yes.
I mean, we should not necessarily indulge in unnecessary talks. Like I'm talking about me whenever I talk about somebody or about something to my friends and all. And if it is negative, then my chanting disturbs very, very, very much. I mean, it's become so inattentive that during my chanting only those thoughts come in my mind, and i I cannot chant properly. So I'm like we should avoid also and unnecessarily talkings
Yes,
during the
prajalpa.
day.
That is prajalpa. And sometimes even you hear blasphemy of devotees, some things which can be very harmful for you. We'll hear about that in a minute. Yes, so thank you, Maharaji, for that. Okay, we'll take a break for a little while. Let's have, how many minutes? What do you want? 10 minutes break, is it?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, okay. So we'll have 10-minute break. Haribo.
Okay. So you want your food now? Now it's 2 o'clock.
No, I'm not ready yet. No. Class is only halfway over.
Oh, halfway over. So what time do you want your food?
3:30.
3:30? Okay. So,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Just a little more on the holy name before we go on to the second part of the first chapter. We ask, what do you do outside of your 16 rounds that nourishes your japa? And what do you do outside of your 16 rounds that hinders your japa? So we have to appreciate certain activities actually are beneficial for our japa and certain activities are not. I think it's not very difficult for you to think what is nourishing your japa. What would that be?
Deity worship, Maharaj? Regular Bhagavatam classes?
Yes, yes, very good, yes. And what hinders our japa?
Distractions, Maharaj, distractions.
What are those distractions?
Vaishnava Aparadh.
Prajalpa Maharaj. Prajalpa Maharaj. Prajalpa Maharaj.
I'm sorry, Prabhu, I couldn't catch what you say.
Maharaj, Vaishnava Aparadh.
Vaishnava Aparadh, well, certainly that's very serious. That's not going to help your japa at all. Yes, but there's some other things which are maybe more common.
Yeah, Maharaj, spending time on mobile, on social media.
Right, yeah.
Talking too much on mobile, you know.
Yeah.
Getting association of fruity workers.
Yes. Too many Bollywood movies. Absolutely. These kind of things.
Bollywood movies, news, mundane news.
Right.
Talking about that.
Okay, very good. All right, so we'll go ahead. Well, a quote here from the 11th verse. According to Sukadeva Goswami, this way of attaining success is an established fact, concluded not only by him, but also by all other previous acharyas. Therefore, there's no need of further evidence. We're talking about the holy name and the recommendation in chanting the holy name. Here's a little bit mentioned about blasphemy, and we are warned that blasphemy is very serious. Criticizing devotees, prajalpa can also come close to blasphemy. And so there are measures for counteracting blasphemy. We don't want to hear, and we don't want to indulge in it ourselves either. We should be very conscious about it. Then Sukadeva Goswami brings up the example of Kadvanga Maharaj. Why would he bring up the example of Kadvanga Maharaj? Can somebody tell us?
Because Maharaj, when we...
Put your hand up. Let me see some hand, then I know who to ask. Otherwise, you all speak at one time. Difficult. Yeah? Can you put your hand up? And then we could take your contribution. Do you know how to put your hand up there? There's a device there. You just click on that.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
Maharaj.
Okay, Prabhu, yes. Amala Charan.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Actually, Sukadeva Goswami was encouraging. Sorry. Sukadeva Goswami was encouraging Parishit Maharaj. He want to say that
you are having now 7 days, but Khadwang Maharaj was having not 7 days also. So that's why he was taking his name to encourage Parikshit Maharaj that he should have, oh, I am having some time and I can also return back to Godhead as Khadwang Maharaj has done.
Right. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Yes, Katvanga Maharaj had only a moment, but Maharaj Parikshit has 7 days. So Sukadeva Goswami is encouraging him. Prabhupada writes, better a moment of full consciousness than a long life of illusion. One moment of full consciousness can give one perfection. Oh, what happened? What happened here? Just a minute. Okay. The above statement and other scriptural evidences discuss the import of this statement. So this better a moment of full consciousness than a long life of illusion. So the import of that statement. Certainly the long life of illusion is not something which we want to be concerned with. And if we can have even a moment of full consciousness, then this is something to our eternal benefit. One moment of full consciousness can lead to more moments of full consciousness. We can go on, so the whole day can be full consciousness. It doesn't have to just be one moment, but one moment is the beginning. It gives us a taste of that full consciousness, and we can go on to develop a greater appreciation.
Bolt it. Bolt it. Bolt the door.
Sometimes you have to mute everyone, Maharaji.
Yes, Maharaj, I did.
And then, can you hear me?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, so we'll go ahead. So dealing with blasphemy, of course, I think many of you may be familiar with the process of how to deal with blasphemy. Although it mentions things like cutting out the person's tongue, it's not required. We don't want to do that. What we do have to do, we have to know that if there's blasphemy, we want to leave, get away from that place. Although we may try to argue with them and defeat what they're saying, it's very difficult to defeat people by argument. So it's better to just go away, don't stay around and don't hear blasphemy, because it's very damaging to our spiritual life. And offending devotees, who are you offending? If we're criticizing devotees, who are we offending? Well, if we're devotees, we're criticizing our own self as well. What is causing you to make offenses or be critical of this devotee? Often what causes us to criticize a devotee is our own false ego, that we have an opinion of ourselves and we're disturbed by someone else is affecting our false ego, and we may criticize them. So what attitude must we adopt to stop being critical? What should be our attitude to stop being critical? Someone would like to suggest?
Quite humble. Humble attitude should be there.
What should we do to stop being critical of other devotees?
Maharaj, we should be humble.
Yes, more tolerant than the tree, and ready to offer all respects to others. We must remember the third verse of Shikshastikam. We should keep it in mind and be ready to offer all respects and be tolerant. Our ego should be small. Our ego should be in size of our spiritual dimension, not our physical dimension, but our spiritual dimension. So what do we have to change within ourselves to adopt these proper attitudes? Well, we have to change our consciousness. We have to change our mentality. We have to develop the mood of being a humble servant and thinking of ourselves as truly insignificant and foolish and low and fallen. The more the devotee advances, the more they consider themselves low and fallen and unqualified. And you can read, for example, in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur says, I am lower than a worm in stool. Anyone who utters my name, they will become sinful. Anyone who hears my name, they will lose all their pious activities. And Prabhupada said, he's not just saying like that, he actually means it. And then when we sing that song also about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koramori, Narottam Das Thakur also describes himself to be very fallen, very low. And of course, he's such a great devotee. So we have to try to develop that attitude to appreciate devotees and to see our own faults. Look at our own faults instead of looking at the faults in others. See, our Prabhupada would even say to us sometimes, he would say, because I am honeycombed with defects, therefore I see faults in others. So we're seeing faults in others, it's because there are faults in ourselves. So we have to be willing to admit our own faults before we try to start looking at others. All right, so Prabhupada's conclusion, we should neither hear nor allow vilification of a devotee. All right, so that's we spoke about these things. You can see connection between the first and second cantos. We spoke about that. A detail, we didn't get into that. Summarize the essence of Sukadeva Goswami's answer to Parikshit Maharaj's question. The essence of Sukadeva Goswami. We said things you shouldn't do and things you should do. And then Sukadeva Goswami went on to, it is talking about the holy name and hearing about the Lord. And then discussed the following phrases, how they reflect Srila Prabhupada's mission. Lokahitam, beneficial for everyone, and apashyatam atma tattvam. People are blind to self-realization. So Krishna consciousness movement is essential to open people's eyes, to get them to understand what it's so important, how spiritual life is so important. We spoke about the Grahamedi's materialistic life, and we talked about Namaparad, to create a favorable lifestyle for chanting different qualities of hearing. We spoke about all these things. And then Sukadeva Goswami, as an impersonalist, became attracted to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Although initially he was gave it up and became a devotee. And finally, guidelines for dealing with blasphemy in a contemporary context. So, what do? We leave the place. Are there any questions before we go on? Okay, we'll go ahead. Connection with the previous lesson. After reassuring Parikshit Maharaj by mentioning Katvanga's example, Sukadeva Goswami begins to explain the process of mystic yoga by which one can achieve the supreme destination. The preliminary stage of this process involves meditation on the universal form as described in the second half of this chapter. So we're going to hear how he meditates on the universal form. So we've given a very brief overview of the points to be discussed here, but going out from the home because you want to achieve self-realization. You have to prepare for death. You have to detach yourself from the material world. So you have to do certain things you have to do. You have to go out from home. You don't stay at home and practice. You get out from, you're going to practice this kind of yoga. You have to go out from home and then go to a holy place, just like it's described in Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. And then Sukadeva Goswami describes meditating on the universal form. So we'll hear about that at the end of the chapter. We'll hear about the Virata Rup. Prabhupada does speak about desire, because we have desires. So these desires have to be purified. This is brought up in text 15. Prabhupada said, one cannot therefore stop dealing. You cannot stop activities, but the subject matter for desire can be changed. So the desire has to become spiritual. As Prabhupada said, we should have the desire to want to go back to Godhead. And then you'll forget about all these other desires. Okay, you can see here. Have you met people like this? They're not able to chant. Oh no, I can't chant, no. Prabhupada tells how the devotees trying to tell someone, they're saying chant, 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 and they say can't, can't, can't. They can say can't, but they can't say Hare Krishna. So those who are not able to chant, they can chant Omkara. It's a mechanical process for training the mind. Just like sometimes in India today, because India is secular, so if you go into the schools, you're not allowed to talk about Krishna. You shouldn't utter the name Krishna. Don't say anything. Don't say Hare Krishna. Just, you can say Om, but you can't say Hare Krishna. So this is the Kali Yuga. It's very difficult for us to give the real knowledge. So we can teach people to chant Om, and then Prabhupada says, meditation on the limbs of Vishnu is better than impersonal Omkara meditation. So we'll hear about how we can meditate on the limbs of Vishnu. Text 19 describes foolish persons bewildered by the external energy of Vishnu do not know the ultimate goal of progressive search after happiness is to get in touch with the Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. So you can see in the picture here, someone's got some money, they made a lot of money, they're thinking that was the goal, they're thinking this is success. But they didn't get the real goal, they didn't get the real success. So how to get the real success? Not everyone can chant. Not everyone can worship deities. There are many people, they don't like to go to temple, and they don't accept the deity as being spiritual. So what to do for these people? So there's Prabhupada explains, text number 20, the neophyte impersonalist is given a chance to realize the relation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of pantheism. So pantheism is the process by which seeing everything in the world as being part of God. You can see in the picture here the mountain. The mountain, also people like to go to nature. They enjoy being close to nature. Whose nature is it? This is the nature of God. So this is pantheism, understanding God. And then there are other things also required, just like the yoga process described in the chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, Astanga Yoga. So it begins with yama. Yama means brahmachari, practicing celibacy. That's the first thing. And then the things you shouldn't do is you shouldn't get involved with the opposite sex. Stay away from that. Practice celibacy. And then other things, you should bathe in the holy rivers. That is a kind of niyam. These are things you should do. You should go to the holy rivers, bathe there 3 times a day. You can read in Srimad Bhagavatam, Devahuti, the mother of Lord Kapila. She was bathing 3 times a day. So there are many saintly ladies and men also. They will bathe 3 times a day. They will take their bath in the holy rivers. And in this way they can purify their consciousness. And then the third stage is asana. And that's done for the yogi, sitting on the deer skin and cloth and practicing his meditation. And then the fourth stage, pranayama, controlling the breath. So that can be done, just like we do pranayama when we're chanting Hare Krishna. So they can also chant Om, and that is also another kind of pranayama. And after pranayama, then there's pratyahara. Pratyahara is internalizing everything, all the objects of the senses and everything, detaching ourselves from them, bringing the senses away from the sense objects and just concentrating within. Bhagavad Gita, we give the example of the turtle, how the turtle withdraws its limbs under the shell and can sit safely under the shell. So the same way the yogi withdraws his senses from the sense objects. And then The sixth stage, dharana, concentration on the form of the Lord in the heart, the super soul. That is the sixth stage. And then seventh stage, meditation on the different limbs, actually focusing on each of the limbs, beginning from the lotus feet and going up to the lotus face. And that gradually can bring one to samadhi, which is the perfection of the yoga stage, where one will not think of anything else except the form of the Lord. One's consciousness will be fully immersed in the form of the Lord. So in this way, can understand the relationship between the Astanga yogi and the devotee, how a devotee concentrates himself on these different limbs of the Lord. So contemplating the universal form, we ask you, if Sukadeva Goswami is a devotee, why is he presenting the process of mystic yoga, beginning with meditation on the Virat? Would someone like to respond to this?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
It is the gradual process of knowing Lord, just like we say in Bhagavatam, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaneti, Shabdete. The process of knowing first Brahma, then Paramatma level, and then Bhagwan. Without knowing the Brahma or Paramatma, no one directly goes to the Swam Bhagwan process. Thank you, Maharaj.
Well, is that true? Didn't we as devotees, didn't we come to Krishna consciousness? You know, I didn't know anything about Brahman, but I came to Krishna consciousness. Are you telling me everybody who comes to Krishna consciousness has to first learn about Brahman before they can begin to practice bhakti?
Sorry, Maharaj, but this is the gradual process from maybe in our last birth, we know about Paramatma and then we come into this bhakti, devotional service, or by the mercy of pure devotee, we will come into this process. But this is the process. Sorry if I am wrong.
Well, you're describing a process, a gradual process. Is it necessary? Everybody has to go through that gradual process? Did you go through that? Did you go through that?
No, not everybody. But this is for the knowing for all other people who are not in this process, but they want to come into the devotion, or they can come into this devotional process by knowing that Paramatma is everywhere or in everything. There is Paramatma, or the all creation is done by Supreme Lord as Mahavishnu. By knowing this, we can gradually submit ourselves into the lotus feet, and we can grow forward. Thank you, Maharaj.
All right, that's better. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Would anyone else like to add to this?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maybe it is for the neophytes who have some materialistic consciousness, who cannot directly understand the higher process. Maybe this is for them.
Yes, right. Could be. Yes.
Maharaj, can we say here that since Bhagavatam was spoken not only for Parikshit Maharaj but general public also, so Shukadeva Goswami wanted to tell everybody from the basics to the advanced level?
Well, do you want everybody to come to the advanced level? They have to come to the advanced level step by step, right? that people hearing, they have to hear from the beginning. That's encouraged. They want to hear, so let them hear from the beginning. Not that they should just rush or just jump up to the face of the Lord. When we meditate, when we come to offer worship to the Lord, we begin from his lotus feet. We don't immediately look on the face of the Lord, but we should look first towards the lotus feet of the Lord and gradually work up to his lotus face. So those who are actually devotees, they will also worship from the lotus feet. They come to see the lotus feet of the Lord and then gradually look up towards his face. So the process of mystic yoga, beginning with meditation on the Virat, it's certainly not necessary that every devotee has to do this. And certainly Sukadeva Goswami is a devotee, but there are many people present there where Sukadeva Goswami is speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, and not all of them are devotees. And he knows that there's a number of them there who are not devotees. So for their benefit also, he is beginning with meditation on the universal form of the Lord. And he's teaching us this process of mystic yoga. Since Maharaj Parikshit was already directly connected with the personal feature of the Lord, why did he inquire about that indirect process? So Maharaj Parikshit was the one who brought up the topic about the indirect process. So why did he inquire about it? Well, as you said, as someone said, not everyone there was a devotee. And he understood that there were some people there who were not devotees. So he's inquiring about this indirect process, which will make it easier for them to hear about the Lord, that they can gradually be purified. How does this process of meditation constitute the first step in God realization? How can it bring one closer to Krishna? Yes? Yes, Maharaji?
Maharaj, it's one step towards God realization because it at least helps us to accept his supremacy.
To accept the supremacy of God. Did you say?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes. The first step in God realization. Yes, we want to be able to understand that there is some personality, some personality behind the creation. And by seeing the world in relation to God, then people can develop an appreciation that there is God there. God is present somewhere in this. There is a personality, there is some design there within the universe. It is not all by chance. So this process of meditation is certainly easier for people, materialistic minded people. If we introduce them to deity worship, temple worship, it's a challenge for them. They're not familiar with it. But by hearing about God, by learning how to visualize God through the world, then that can bring us into God consciousness. And then they can go on gradually one day to come to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada explains. Can somebody read this for me?
May I read, Maharaj?
Yes?
What is the benefit of being aware of the universal form? These dirty things of fruitive work and empiric philosophy can be removed only by association with the Supreme Lord. The Lord, being omnipotent, can offer his association by his inconceivable potencies. Thus, persons who are unable to pin their faith on the personal feature of the Absolute are given a chance to associate with his Virat Roop, or the cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord. The cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord is a feature of his unlimited potencies. Since the potent and potencies are identical, even the conception of his impersonal cosmic feature helps the conditioned soul to associate with the Lord indirectly and thus gradually rise to the stage of personal contact.
Very good. Thank you so much. So Prabhupada's answering our question for us. Why Sukadeva Goswami explained these things. This is from the purport, text number 22. And then from 24, a favor to the neophyte. The Virata Rup manifestation of the Lord is simultaneously a challenge to the atheist and a favor for the Asura. Who can think of the Lord as Virat and thus gradually cleanse the dirty things from their heart in order to become qualified to actually see the transcendental form of the Lord in the near future? This is a favor of the all-merciful Lord to the atheist and the gross materialist. So a favor to the atheist. The atheists, they don't believe in God. So, okay. So here's the Virata Rup. So they can think of God as the different parts of the universe. Here's some quotes. This is from first one from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, where the universal form is described. The common man who has no love for Krishna cannot always think of Krishna. Therefore, he has to think materially. Because materialists cannot understand Krishna spiritually, they are advised to concentrate the mind on physical things and try to see how Krishna is manifested by physical representations. And then from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 3, actually all such descriptions are for the neophytes. The neophytes cannot conceive of anything beyond matter. The material conception of the Lord is not counted in the list of his factual forms. So the Virata Rupa's a material form, and Prabhupada explains here from text 36 of the first chapter, Prabhupada explains that contemplating the universal form has no meaning unless it helps you to develop the service attitude. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of such realization will have very little effect on the seer. So the whole purpose of this visualizing this Virata Rupa is that it will bring people to take up service. If they don't develop the service attitude, no use. So we'll go on to this last section, the last part of this first chapter, the conception of the Virata Rup, the gigantic form. Here you can see this gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is the personal body of the Absolute Truth. You can see how the artists have put together this form of the material world, the elements of material nature, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And you can see the soul is also there and the super soul. They've highlighted these things. Mind is also shown there, top of the head. Or rather, it's not the mind, that's the brain. Mind is in the heart. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planet known as Patala constitute the bottom of the feet of the universal Lord. And the heels and the toes are Rasatala planets. The ankles are Mahatala planets. And the shanks constitute Talatala planets. And so in this way, different planets are there in the lower part of the body of the universal form. And upper parts of the body, then higher planets will be there. Birds are an indication of the Lord's masterful artistic sense. We can see the beauty in birds, their colorful feathers, their grace. The ocean is like the waist of the Lord, and the hills and mountains are stacks of his bones. Rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. Trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The termination of days or nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes. So, a question for you. Is the universal form material, transcendental, or simply imaginary? So we invite you, get a hold of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. I hope you have one nearby. You all seem to be at home. So you must have a soft copy at least, some copy somewhere. And we want you to look, chapter 11, text 5, and chapter 11, text number 45, and try to reconcile them. Okay? So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Okay, anybody come up with anything? Can reconcile these two statements, 11.5 and 11.45? Yes, Prabhu? Oh, Mataji, is it? Ganga?
Yes, Maharaj. So what I understood is that although the universal form is transcendental, because it's not possible for Krishna to take, not exactly not possible, but Krishna has nothing to do with matter. So therefore, whatever form he takes is transcendental. But because this form exists only in the material world, which is temporary and has no place in the spiritual world, therefore it is material as well in that sense.
Yes. In that sense, because it's material world, yes. Is it real or is it imaginary?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes?
Maharaj, in continuation with Bandashakti Mataji, as she said, this form, this universal form is not transcendental. Of course, it is transcendental, but in material world, it is not permanent. As the cosmic manifestations are come up and get destroyed similarly, this form is not permanent, this is temporary. And in spiritual planets, of course, Lord has different forms and they are transcendental, but in material world, this form is not permanent. And devotee has nothing to do with this form.
Yes, right.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. So then we're asked to compare these purports with Srimad Bhagavatam. These two different verses from Srimad Bhagavatam purports. also talking about the universal form. 1-330. So 1-330. What does Prabhupada say in 1-330?
Much Prabhupada is telling in these two purports that the Virat Roop is temporary as well as imaginary.
He's
Because
saying it's imaginary.
and temporary as well. I mean, temporary in the sense because it's imaginary. So, I mean, first Prabhupada said temporary, but then Prabhupada, and in the later purport, he said it's imaginary. But this is just to impress the idea that Lord is conscious of every part of his body, and nowhere in the creation is there anything beyond his control.
Okay, good. And what about 2-536?
So the last line, Maharaj, that I said is from 2536 only. The idea impressed herein is that Supreme Lord is conscious of every part of his body, and nowhere in the creation is there anything beyond his control.
2-536, there's nothing about the universal form?
Prabhupada in 2536 says that it's an absolute imagination of speculative philosophers.
Ah, yes.
Maharaj, we can say something like it's all in context for the neophyte devotees. And devotees have nothing to do with this transcendental, with this universal form. So all has been explained here, and this universal form has been shown for the benefit of the neophyte devotees only, because they are more or less connected with the matter only.
Yes. Okay. Okay, here's a quote. This is from another section, again, Canto 2, but chapter 6. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his partial representation, measuring not more than 9 inches as supersoul, expands by his potential energy in the shape of the universal form, which includes everything manifested in different varieties of organic and inorganic materials. So again, here it's supposed to be imaginary, but here it's 9 inches and includes everything material. So certainly there's a lot of controversial statements here. Is the form real or imaginary? The Virata universal form of the Absolute is an imagination of the speculative philosophers who are unable to adjust to the eternal two-handed form of Lord Sri Krishna. Although the universal form, as imagined by the great philosophers, is one of the features of the Lord, it is more or less imaginary. That is 2536. And here's from the third canto, 6th chapter, verse 4. Virata Rup is not, therefore, an eternal form of the Lord, exhibited in the spiritual sky. It is a material manifestation of the Lord. The Arsha Vigraha, or the worshipable deity in the temple, is a similar manifestation of the Lord for the neophytes. But in spite of their material touch, such forms of the Lord as the Virat and Archa are all non-different from his external form, or from his eternal form as Lord Krishna. So the deity has a material touch, but the forms in the temple worship, they're considered non-different from the eternal form of Krishna. But the Virata Rup, that is not an eternal form. We have a bit more on this. 11th canto. It is merely the temporary imaginary resemblance of his personal form within the kingdom of Maya. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as in the second canto, the universal form of the Lord is clearly explained to be an imaginary form offered to the neophytes for meditation on God. And again, also from 11th canto, similarly, the Virata Rup, or universal form of the Lord, is an imaginary form meant to help the gross materialists gradually understand the position of the personality of Godhead. So those are some conclusive statements that the universal form of the Lord is imaginary. However, here's something else, something which comes up, because Arjuna had also seen the universal form. So what about that? So the form seen by Arjuna, that is a manifestation by Krishna's internal potency. 1147, purport. The form is contained within Krishna's two-armed form. So this form seen by Arjuna at Kurukshetra was different from what we think as being the universal form. What Arjuna actually saw was Krishna's internal potency, and it's contained within Krishna's two-armed form. And then Only the pure devotees can see that form. A devotee is not much interested in the universal form, for it does not enable one to reciprocate loving feelings. So we don't have interest in that kind of form. So then, those who are impersonalists are also imagining that they're seeing the universal form of the Lord. But from Bhagavad Gita, we understand that the impersonalists are not devotees. Therefore, they are unable to see the universal form of the Lord. And his Virata Rup exists and is all-pervading. However, the Lord shows that form only to whom he chooses. So that universal form is not meant for everyone, it's only for certain devotees. The Lord considers certain people qualified. And here's a little discussion here between Malati and Srila Prabhupada. Malati, a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada from the very beginning of the Krishna consciousness movement. So she asked Prabhupada, what class of impersonalists are worshipping the universal form? And Prabhupada responds, universal form is not impersonal, it is personal. That is also a manifestation of Krishna. And Malati said, but you say, in one of your purports, you were saying that the impersonalists are worshipping the universal form. And Prabhupada said, they are advised. And Shamsundar, husband of Malati, he comes forward and says, advised to worship. So they are advised to worship. But not that they're actually doing it. They should be doing it, but they're not. And a famous quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Stavara Jangama Deki Na Deki Taromurti Sarvatrahaya Nija Ista Deva Spurti. The advanced devotee certainly sees everything, mobile and immobile, but he does not exactly see their forms. Rather, everywhere he immediately sees manifest the form of the Supreme Lord. From the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8, verse 274. So that's the end of that lesson, covering the first chapter. We talked about the progression of Sukadev Goswami's instructions and why is he describing Bhakti Mishra Yoga with meditation on the Virat as its beginning stage, and why is Parikshit interested in hearing it? Parikshit's interested in hearing it, not so much for his own benefit, but he wants to show an example to others. The main features of the universal form, we heard about those. The importance of developing the service attitude as opposed to the exploitive mentality typical of the conditioned souls. We want to appreciate God's creation belongs to everyone. It's not meant for just a few. And the benefits of meditating on the universal form for those unable to appreciate Krishna's personal form. The benefit of meditating on that universal form will help them to develop the service attitude so that they can come to appreciate Krishna's personal form. And the nature of the universal form as a temporary but transcendentally surcharged personal manifestation of Krishna. All right? Are there some questions? Anybody has any questions on what we covered here today? Yes, Prabhu?
Maharaj, how would meditating on the universal form would develop a service attitude, Maharaj? Exactly.
Well, simply understanding that we are part of that universal form. Every living entity also has a place in that universal form. So if we think of ourselves as being part of that universal form, then it's our duty to work in cooperation with that, with the rest of the material nature.
Yes, yes, Maharaj. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Maharaj, may I ask one question, please?
Please do.
Maharaj, if you want to conclude universal form maybe in one or two lines, how would we do that?
Well, we could describe some of the main elements of the universal form. As we tried to do here today, we showed some illustrations. We mentioned about the moon is the mind, and the sun is like the eye, and the mountains are like the bones on the body of the Lord, and the different planets and different places in the universe represent different limbs.
I mean, Maharaj, we will say that it is basically for understanding of neophytes, and it is temporary and imaginary. Or, I mean, on that lines, what would we say? Because I'm honestly, I'm a little confused.
Well, I wouldn't want to highlight that to the people if you're talking to neophytes. Rather, you want to explain to them how they can contemplate the form of the Supreme from the elements of the universe. That just by contemplating all the different aspects of this material world, that they all make up a form, a supreme form of the Lord. You don't have to say a lot, but you do have to. I wouldn't want to tell them that it's imaginary and it's temporary. I would simply point out that we can see God through the material nature, and that everything in this world is part of the body of the Supreme. And then relate different parts, different elements, different features of the material world, and describe how they represent some particular aspect of God.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Maharaj, may I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Maharaj, like we came to know of the today's class that this universal form is meant only for neophyte devotees. And as we studied in Bhagavad Gita, after a particular time, Arjun was quite afraid of that universal form, and he wanted to see Krishna's original form once again. So, universal form is solely meant for neophyte devotees. So, if we show that universal form to the neophyte devotees, won't they be afraid also?
If we show the universal form to neophyte devotees, won't they object also? Well, the point was, remember that Arjuna was seeing a very special universal form. Arjuna was seeing that Kala Roop. He was seeing the form of time. And he could see all the people from Kurukshetra, how they were all being devoured by that force of time. So that was what was frightening. That was what was terrifying to him. But in presenting the universal form and presenting the features of the universe, how they make up the Virata Roop, it's quite different from what Arjuna saw. Because Arjuna saw everyone being devoured by the Kala, the Kala Roop. But
Okay, Maharaj, thank you so much.
the form which we're describing, it's not like that. We're talking about the artistic nature of the Supreme, how the birds represent the artistic nature of the Supreme. And the clouds are like the hair on the body of the Lord. There's nothing terrifying in these descriptions. But what Arjuna saw, that was something terrifying. That was quite different. All right?
Okay, Maharaj, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, it could be,
yes, Prabhu, yes?
It could be like that yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvata mai pashyati. Something like
yes.
that whoever sees me everywhere, then I am very much easily available to him.
What do you mean? What's your point?
That seeing the nature as Krishna, is remembering him continuously by seeing the nature and seeing everything.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chami. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
So it helps Maharaj that way.
Yes. Of course, Krishna was not so much encouraging us, but visualizing him in the universal form. He was we were encouraged to see Krishna as a person, as the flute player, as the cowherd boy, the darling of Braja.
Yes, Maharaj.
But not everyone is able to accept these things, and for other people, those who are neophytes in their terms of self-realization, they have to begin by contemplating the universe and then come to understand that there is some supreme, there is some design in the world.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. So nice, Maharaj.
And by coming together with the devotees in the beginning, simply contemplate the material nature. So Prabhupada stressed the importance that contemplating the universal form, they have to come to that point of service, developing the service mood. Otherwise, it's no good. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time. So that's the important thing.
Maharaj, when we say about the service mood, then service mood has to be on Krishna only.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, service, it can be that we can not necessarily Krishna. You can also serve Lord Vishnu. You can serve the Lord in any particular form. Some people may like to devote themselves to Lord Rama.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Maharaj, can I request for one thing, Maharaj?
Yes.
Maharaj, can you please explain a little bit more about the Chaitanya Charitamrita verse, Thavar Jangam na dekhe tar murti?
Oh, yes, that verse. Well, that is the vision of the devotee, right? That is the vision of the pure devotee, that those who are the topmost devotee, advanced devotee, they see everything, mobile and immobile, everything. It doesn't matter, but they see the Lord there within everything. He does, as the verse says, he does not exactly, he does not exactly see Krishna, rather everywhere he sees the form of Lord Krishna. He does not exactly see their forms, or he doesn't see their forms, but he sees Krishna's form, because Krishna is within the heart of every living entity. So he's seeing every living entity in that way in relationship to Krishna. This verse is often quoted as the vision of the Uttama Adhikari, that they'll see Krishna everywhere. So they will not preach, because they say, well, everyone's Krishna's there. They're seeing everyone as being part and parcel of Krishna. And they think there's no need to preach, because everyone is Krishna. Krishna is everywhere. They see Krishna, everything. So they don't take time to preach. They want trouble to preach. This is the vision of the Uttama Adhikari, that they would see like that. They don't just see the body of the person, but they see Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. This is Raj Praman Krishna Prabhu. You can ask your question. You have put in chat. You can ask directly to Maharaj.
Maharaj, may I ask a question?
Yes.
One more question, one little bit confusion is there. I would like to throw some light on the visions of the neophytes and the advanced devotees in context of this universal form. Of course, neophytes are in the nature, and advanced devotees are also in the nature. Neophytes appreciate the nature. Similarly, advanced devotees also appreciate the nature. Then how the advanced devotees sees Krishna in context of the universal form or the other form. So please throw some light on this also.
Well, the neophyte devotee, they don't have that ability to understand the spiritual energy. They can only think in terms of material energy. They do not understand that there's the spiritual energy as well as the material energy. So when they see things, they simply see matter. They do not understand the presence of the Lord within the heart of people. Sometimes we will talk about the Kanishta Adhikari, that they only see God in the temple. They think God is only in the deity. They cannot appreciate that God is also in the heart of the public who come to worship the deity. They respect the deity and they worship the deity, but they have no love and respect for the public who are coming to worship the deity. They only see God in the form of the deity. And other people, they don't see God in the deity even. They just simply see matter. They just see material elements. So that's a neophyte devotee. He understands there's something beyond the world. There's some higher nature, but he's not able to understand what it is. So he is guided to contemplate the Lord through the universal form, to contemplate a supreme being through the different elements of the material creation. Whereas the advanced devotee, he understands spiritual energy as well as material energy. And he understands that Lord Krishna is the supreme spiritual energy, and he is present in the hearts of all living entities. And the material energy is also Krishna's energy. It's also Krishna's energy. It's all meant for his service. It's all Krishna's property. So the advanced devotee doesn't see anything separate from Krishna. He sees everywhere Krishna. Whereas the neophyte devotee can only think in terms of the matter. They will say, seeing is believing. What I want to see. So if you take them to the temple and tell them this is God, they cannot accept. They say it's just a statue. He has no life. They cannot see the spiritual element, the spiritual energy which is comprising the form of the deity. Yes, does that help you, Prabhu?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much. All clear. All clear, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other points? Okay, so then we'll meet tomorrow. We have to go on, and tomorrow we'll look chapter 2.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank
Hare
you, sir.
Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you
Thank
so
you
Hare
very
much.
much,
Krishna.
Maharaj. So nice, Maharaj.
Thank you so much.
Hare
We had
Krishna.
wonderful.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Bhakti Vinasa Maharaj ki. Jai.
Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, shall we end the meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks so much.